Have you ever tried to explain a really complex scientific concept to a 7-year-old?
Oh, it is a uniquely humbling experience, honestly.
Right. I mean, you start out with the best of intentions. You really want to be accurate and thorough, but within like 30 seconds, their eyes just completely glaze over.
They're suddenly deeply fascinated by a piece of lint on the rug.
Exactly. And you realize you have just completely lost them. But, and here's the crazy part, have you ever noticed how a kid who might absolutely break down in tears over a two-syllable spelling word can just effortlessly, joyfully pronounce the word Pachycephalosaurus?
It's wild, yeah. But we constantly run into this wall because, well, adults tend to forget that children process the world entirely differently than we do.
Oh, for sure.
We try to hand them our adult tools,
Yeah.
right? Things like abstract thinking skills or foundational vocabulary or, geological time scales.
Which they just don't have the architecture for yet.
Exactly. They just don't have it. They can't hear a dictionary definition and internalize it.
Which brings us perfectly to our mission for today's deep dive. We are looking at a classic piece of children's literature, which is a read aloud of the Berenstain Bears dinosaur dig.
A true classic.
It really is. And, before you wonder why we're spending time analyzing a book about cartoon bears, just stick with us, because our goal today is to extract the brilliantly simple ways this book explains complex dinosaur features to kids.
Yeah, it's practically a masterclass in science communication.
Totally. It provides this absolute perfect blueprint for explaining prehistoric giants to, well, the elementary schoolers in your life, or just letting you indulge your own inner child.
And frankly, it offers some pretty wild insights into how adults can better absorb new information, too.
Okay, let's unpack this, because I was genuinely surprised by how this story takes these incredibly dense paleontological concepts and just effortlessly distills them into pure fun and engaging mechanics.
Right. And I think what stands out immediately is how the book fundamentally rejects that dry textbook approach.
Yeah, you can't just hand an elementary schooler a chart of the Mesozoic era and expect them to care at all.
No, you really can't. You have to manipulate their attention using the tools they already understand, which are action, scale, and this profound sense of physical wonder.
So to understand how to teach kids about dinosaurs, we kind of have to understand why they even care in the first place, right? Which brings us to the start of the story with Brother and Sister Bear at the Bear Country Library.
Right, they're looking for a book.
Yeah, they're sifting through mysteries and sports stories until Brother finds a dinosaur book. And the text points out very specifically what grabs their attention.
It's the extremes.
Exactly, the extremes. It explicitly mentions they are drawn to the long, ferocious teeth and the long, ferocious names like Tyrannosaurus, Stegosaurus, Triceratops.
Those massive words.
Yeah, and I found myself wondering, why is it that young kids who are usually so intimidated by big words just absolutely love memorizing these unpronounceable multisyllabic names? Why is that a feature and not a bug?
Well, think about the power dynamic of being a child. You live in a world where adults hold all the cards, right?
Oh, absolutely.
They have the money, they make the rules, and crucially, they hold all the vocabulary. The language adults use is often just completely opaque to a 7-year-old.
So it's about control.
Exactly. When a child encounters a domain of knowledge that is highly specialized, like dinosaur taxonomy, mastering those complex names becomes profoundly empowering.
Oh, wow. So it's basically a flex.
It absolutely is a flex. When a child can correctly pronounce Parasaurolophus and their parent stumbles over it, it completely flips the script.
That makes so much sense. It gives them a sense of ownership over the subject.
Yeah, they become the gatekeepers of this specific knowledge. The author repeats that word ferocious to highlight the intensity of these creatures, but the kid is the one who gets to tame that intensity by speaking its name.
That is so fascinating, and there is a brilliant safety valve built into that intensity, too.
Oh, the time barrier.
Yes. The book highlights this crucial psychological comfort for kids. It explicitly states that the best part about dinosaurs is that they lived long, long ago, so you didn't have to worry about them getting you today.
Right, because kids need that distance.
Totally. I read that and immediately thought of watching a really terrifying monster movie, but from the safety of your own living room couch with a blanket pulled up to your chin.
That's a perfect analogy, because the concept of deep time is usually way too abstract for kids. But framing it as a safety barrier is just a stroke of genius.
It makes it functional for them.
Exactly. It allows them to explore incredibly violent, ferocious concepts, like giant predators with huge teeth hunting down prey without triggering actual anxiety.
Right, because they know it's not going to jump out of their closet.
Yeah, it creates the perfect sterile environment for learning. They get all the thrill of the monster without the physiological threat of the monster.
So they conquer the monster by conquering its name, all from the safety of millions of years in the future. I love that.
It's a great setup.
So, assuming we have successfully hooked our imaginary 7-year-old with these ferocious teeth and giant names, the natural next question an inquisitive kid will ask is, wait, if there are these giant meat-eaters running around, how did any of the other dinosaurs survive?
Right, the classic predator-prey dilemma.
Yeah. And here is where I think the book's translation of abstract science gets really, really interesting, because it focuses purely on functional features.
It's moving the child from the aesthetic appeal of the predator to the mechanical survival strategies of the prey.
Exactly. Let's look at how it does that, because the language shifts dramatically here. When explaining the Stegosaurus, the book doesn't say it possessed a defensive adaptation.
No, it keeps it simple.
Right. It tells the reader that the Stegosaurus had spikes on its tail, and it could use them to whack big meat eaters like the Tyrannosaurus and Allosaurus.
I love that word, whack.
It's so good. And for the Triceratops, it points out the sharp horns on its head used to poke any other dinosaur who messed with it.
This completely abandoning scientific terminology.
Literally entirely. It uses playground-style action verbs, whack, poke, mess with it. It basically turns a Stegosaurus tail into a prehistoric baseball bat.
It's brilliant.
But, okay, here's where it gets really interesting, and I have to push back a little on this tactic. If our goal is actually science communication, does simplifying the language this much to the level of a schoolyard fight risk losing the actual science we're trying to teach?
I see why you'd ask that, but I would actually argue it's the most rigorous way to teach science at that age level.
Really? How so?
Well, think about it. If you say defensive mechanism, a 7-year-old hears Charlie Brown's teacher. It's just abstract noise to them.
Whoa. Yeah, fair point.
Right. But by connecting a specific physical feature, like the spikes or the horns, to a highly relatable kinetic function like whacking or poking a bully, the author is perfectly teaching the core concept of evolutionary adaptation.
I mean, it just sounds a bit like violence to me, rather than science.
But it establishes direct cause and effect in terms a child's brain can process. Evolution is a massive, slow, abstract concept. But kinetic energy, physics. A child understands exactly what happens when a baseball bat hits a tree. They understand the mechanics of a poke.
Ah, okay. I see what you mean.
By linking the physical feature to an action, they learn that animals have highly specific body parts for highly specific survival reasons. It builds the cognitive scaffolding they need.
So later on, they have something to attach the big words to.
Exactly. Later in life, when a biology teacher introduces terms like selective pressure or morphological adaptation, the student already has a concrete mental model of a stegosaurus whacking a T-Rex to attach those terms to.
Okay, that makes perfect sense. So the translation we're offering here is essentially feature plus action equals survival.
That's it.
Spikes plus whack equals not getting eaten by a T-Rex.
That is the exact formula. You give the child a functional working model they can instantly visualize and apply to other creatures.
Well, let's follow that idea of applying the knowledge, because the narrative introduces a major shift in how the kids interact with this information next.
Museum trip.
Yes. The whole bear family heads to the Berenstain Museum to see the skeletons in person. And there is a fantastic detail where the book notes the skeletons were ginormous.
Again, speaking directly to that childlike awe of scale.
Exactly. But while they're marveling at these ginormous skeletons, they run into Professor Actual Factual, the head of the museum, and he tells them they've been bitten by the dinosaur bug.
Which leads to a great little misunderstanding.
It's so funny. Sister Bear immediately looks around, terrified, asking what kind of bug that is, because she's assuming it's some huge prehistoric insect buzzing around the museum trying to bite them.
It's a charming moment, but it actually serves a real purpose in the book.
What's that?
It reminds the adult reader how literal children are. They do not process idioms.
Right.
The professor has to actually pause and clarify that it's just a phrase for an obsession that's hard to shake.
Oh, that's a great point. It's a subtle reminder to us to watch our language when explaining things.
Exactly.
Well, the professor then proves he definitely has the bug himself, because he takes them out the rear of the museum to a massive open pit.
Right, the active dig site.
Yeah, there are mounds of earth. Scientists are down in the dirt, carefully digging away. It's an active dinosaur dig right in the museum's backyard. And Brother Bear immediately asks the question every single kid would ask. Did you find a Tyrannosaurus?
Because kids love the headliners.
Of course they do. But the professor tells him no. Instead, they found a Spinosaurus skeleton. And the book describes it as a fierce dinosaur, almost as big as a T-Rex, but distinguished by a huge fin on its back.
Which is such a deliberate choice by the author.
Right. I was surprised by this. Usually children's books just default to the T-Rex because it's a guaranteed crowd pleaser. Why do you think it's important to introduce a creature like the Spinosaurus and focus on that specific giant back fin?
What's fascinating here is it comes back to how you portray the field of science itself.
Okay, how so?
By moving the characters from a library to a museum with static bones, and finally to an active dig site in the dirt, the book introduces children to the scientific method in real time.
Showing them it's not just old news.
Right. Showing them a Spinosaurus instead of a T-Rex completely shatters the illusion that paleontology is a closed, finished book.
It proves there's still incredible stuff in the ground waiting to be found.
Precisely. It expands the listener's perspective. It tells the child that science is an active, ongoing quest, and focusing on that giant fin is a brilliant visual cue.
Because it's so weird looking.
Yes. A fin on a massive land predator is weird. It's completely alien. It visually communicates that there is incredible variety in nature they haven't even seen yet.
It makes you wonder what it's for.
Exactly. It invites the kid to ask, well, what was the fin for? Was it for regulating temperature? Was it for display? It opens up a whole new avenue of questioning that just showing another standard T-Rex wouldn't trigger.
It keeps the mystery alive for them.
It really does.
Well, the kids actually climb down a ladder into the dig to see this humongous Spinosaurus skeleton up close. But as they're down there, the professor's tour brilliantly expands the prehistoric world way beyond just the giant land-dwelling creatures we usually think of.
Yeah, he shows them the broader ecosystem.
Yeah. As they walk through the dig, brother and sister imagine the creatures as they would have looked when alive. They see another finback reptile, the Dimetrodon.
Oh, classic.
They see the Apatosaurus, highlighted for its giant long neck. Then they look up and see a pterodactyl, which the book specifically categorizes as a flying reptile. And finally, a Mosasaurus, a giant sea reptile.
Let's pause on that Mosasaurus for a second because the author uses very specific comparative tool there that I love.
Yes, the shark comparison. The description vividly says the Mosasaurus was bigger and more ferocious than any shark that ever swam the seas. I love that so much.
It works perfectly, doesn't it? Because a young reader might have absolutely no mental framework for what a marine reptile is.
Right. That just sounds like a turtle to them, maybe.
Exactly. But they know exactly what a shark is. A shark is universally understood by kids as a scary apex predator of the ocean.
So it sets the bar.
Yes. By explicitly stating the Mosasaurus is bigger and more ferocious than a shark, the author instantly scales the threat level in a way a kid implicitly understands. They piggyback on existing knowledge to explain the new knowledge.
That is so smart. But I do want to ask about how we categorize all these animals, though.
Okay, what did you notice?
Well, I noticed the book makes a very pointed effort to call the pterodactyl a flying reptile and the Mosasaurus a sea reptile. I honestly thought pterodactyls were just flying dinosaurs. Is the book just being overly pedantic here by refusing to lump them all under the word dinosaur?
Not at all, and it's actually my favorite subtle detail in the entire story.
Really? Why?
Because it is gently teaching young readers taxonomy and ecological niches. Biologically speaking, pterosaurs and marine reptiles are not dinosaurs.
Wait, they aren't?
No, they are on entirely different evolutionary branches, even though they shared the planet at the exact same time.
Oh, wow. I actually didn't know that.
Yeah, so by using the term reptiles for the flyers and the swimmers, and saving the word dinosaurs just for the land creatures, the book is quietly showing that the prehistoric world had incredibly diverse, complex ecosystems.
So what does this all mean for the kids reading it? It's teaching them about different domains like the skies, the seas, the land, without ever using a heavy academic word like biodiversity or ecological niche.
It is a masterclass in sneaking rigorous science into a fun narrative. Even the inclusion of the Dimetrodon earlier, which is technically a synapsid, more closely related to mammals than dinosaurs, shows this huge commitment to displaying a wide array of ancient life.
That's incredible.
The kids are getting a foundational lesson in taxonomy and anatomy, but to them, it's just an awesome tour of giant bones in a dirt pit.
It really is brilliant layering. And, as they climb out of that dirt pit, the cubs are totally fired up. They immediately hit the museum shop, which is like the classic kid move to get books, models, and kits.
You have to hit the gift shop.
Obviously. But all this learning they just did at the museum isn't meant to just stay in the museum, right?
Right.
The true test of a child's understanding is how they physically apply it. Which brings us back to the bear's treehouse and just absolute unchecked chaos.
Yes, this is where we see the transition from passive absorption to active application.
The book describes how brother and sister soon had every single inch of their treehouse covered with model dinosaurs. They have dinosaurs fighting on the stairs, eating on the kitchen table, sleeping on the sofa, and swimming in the bathtub.
Total immersion.
Total immersion. And my absolute favorite detail, there are clay dinosaurs sitting inside the refrigerator. The book explains brother put them there so they wouldn't get soft and squishy.
It's a hilarious visual, but think about the leap in logic that child just made.
What do you mean?
They took an obsession with evolutionary biology and spontaneously linked it to material science.
Wait, material science? From putting clay in a fridge?
Yes. Brother Bear understands that clay gets warm and loses its structural integrity, right?
Yeah, it gets mushy.
So the fridge is cold. Therefore, the fridge preserves the shape of the dinosaur. He is actively experimenting with how physical properties interact with their environment.
That's actually amazing.
It is a highly logical, scientific conclusion for a child to reach, even if it leaves a massive mess next to the milk.
That's deeply relatable for any parent who has found a toy in a bizarre place and just wondered, what was the thought process here?
There's usually a logic to it.
Right. But I kind of view this whole house takeover like how adults use visual aids or whiteboards after a really big meeting. We map things out spatially to make sense of them. Is this chaotic house takeover actually a crucial part of the learning process for them?
Or absolutely. If we connect this to the bigger picture, for elementary-age students, this type of immersive spatial play isn't just a part of the process, it is the highest form of learning.
Really? The highest form?
Yes. When they take the abstract facts they just learned at the dig site, the fins, the spikes, the long necks, the distinct habitats, and they physically manifest them in their own environment, it means they are completely internalizing the knowledge.
So the bathtub mosasaurus isn't just a mess.
Exactly. Having the mosasaur swim in the bathtub is a practical application of the concept of a marine reptile. They are building physical, spatial models of the information in order to understand it deeply.
So they are essentially peer reviewing their own museum trip through play.
That's a great way to put it.
They're testing the boundaries of the world they just learned about. And the grand finale of this peer review session happens right before dinner.
Poor Papa Bear.
Poor Papa Bear, yeah. He's tired from a long day. He heads for his favorite easy chair with the evening newspaper. And as he starts to sit down, he has to jump up yelling. Because Sister Bear has created what she proudly calls her ultimate setup of the Jurassic Age, right on the seat of his chair.
A prime, highly contested piece of real estate for a prehistoric diorama.
Oh, absolutely, the best spot in the house. And Pop is very patient about the whole thing. He tells them he's delighted they have this wonderful new interest. But as he gently moves the toys off his chair to the coffee table, he mutters that the Jurassic Age will just have to settle for the coffee table.
Right.
And with a heavy sigh, he finally sits down to read his paper. It's a very sweet, very grounded end to this massive imaginative journey.
It beautifully grounds the grand, unimaginable scale of deep time back into the cozy, familiar reality of a family living room.
It really does. Okay, let's take a step back and just briefly recap the blueprint we've uncovered today, because there's so much to take away, whether you're trying to explain evolution to a 7-year-old or just trying to wrap your own head around a new topic.
Definitely.
We started with the sheer magnetic appeal of big words and ferocious teeth. We saw how mastering intimidating vocabulary gives a child a sense of power, and how the safety of the distant past creates an emotional buffer for them to explore scary concepts.
Right. And from there, we explored the pedagogy of action, swapping out those dry, abstract science terms for kinetic action verbs.
The whacking and the poking.
Exactly. Using whack and poke to explain horns and spikes. We saw how replacing an abstract idea like adaptation with the concrete physics of a playground fight builds the cognitive scaffolding they need to actually understand evolution later on.
Then we moved out to the active dig site to see science in motion. And by highlighting the bizarre fin of the Spinosaurus instead of just defaulting to the T-Rex, the book teaches kids that discovery is an ongoing quest, not just a static historical fact.
We also saw the subtle expansion of the prehistoric world into the skies and seas, using taxonomy to categorize flying and swimming reptiles separately from land dinosaurs.
Which proves the existence of complex ancient ecosystems.
Yeah. And of course, the brilliant use of relative framing comparing the threat level of a mosasaurus to a modern-day shark so they instantly get it.
Finally, we watched how all that incoming knowledge transforms into immersive, imaginative play, taking over the stairs, the bathtub, and yes, the refrigerator.
The material science lab in the fridge.
Exactly. So for you listening, whether you are trying to explain the functional purpose of an Apatosaurus neck to a 7-year-old, or you're just trying to wrap your own head around a totally new, dense software system at work, the lessons hold up.
They really do.
Use vivid, kinetic verbs. Compare new alien concepts to familiar things, like sharks or baseball bats. Focus on the physical action of a feature rather than its academic definition. It is a universal blueprint for effective communication.
It's all about finding ways to make the abstract tangible, which honestly brings up a fascinating point about how our learning process degrades as we grow older.
Oh, how so?
Well, we saw how the bear cubs solidified their learning by building a physical, spatial Jurassic age on Papa's chair. But as adults, we often just read a dense article, maybe nod to ourselves, and immediately move on to the next tab in our browser.
Guilty as charged.
Right. We rarely take the time to truly integrate it. What if we retained far more of our adult learning? If we intentionally found our own grown-up ways to play with the information we just consumed?
That is a great question.
Think about your own workflows. What would your version of clay dinosaurs in the fridge look like for the very next complex topic you want to master?